I shouldn't be telling you this. Not because it's illegal, or even because it's dangerous in the way you're probably imagining, but because once you hear it, you can't unhear it. And once that seed is planted, it doesn't leave you. I know because it happened to me. People think lost episodes are just urban legends, campfire stories for internet forums. You laugh, you roll your eyes, you move on. But the one I found isn't some pixelated creepypasta from a kid with Photoshop. It isn't a harmless hoax with spooky static and fake blood splatters. What I found bled through the screen. It stayed with me. And if Nickelodeon knew I was saying this, I'd probably disappear. I know how that sounds. I used to laugh at this stuff too. God, I wish I still could. But that laughter dies pretty quick when the thing you're laughing at starts looking back at you. When a cartoon face, something you grew up trusting, twists into something that knows your name. I didn't stumble across this by accident. I went looking for it. That's the worst part, knowing this is all my fault. I pushed too far, dug too deep, got greedy chasing that rush of forbidden nostalgia. I thought I was just chasing a rare tape. I didn't realize I was inviting something into my life. There's an episode of SpongeBob SquarePants that doesn't officially exist. At least, not anymore. An episode they buried so deep even most insiders won't admit it was ever made. But it's real. I've seen it. I wish to God I hadn't, but I did. And the more I try to forget it, the louder it gets, like a song stuck on repeat at the back of my skull. You probably want me to skip ahead and tell you exactly what I saw, don't you? That's natural. That's the curiosity that hooked me too. But if I just dumped everything on you right now, you wouldn't understand. You'd shrug it off, call me dramatic. So I need to take you back, before the tape, before the glitches, before the nightmares. I need you to see how something as innocent as childhood nostalgia turned into the worst mistake of my life. Because this didn't start as horror. It started as a memory. Like most kids my age, SpongeBob wasn't just a cartoon. It was background noise to my entire childhood. I'd come home from school, toss my backpack somewhere it didn't belong, and flip on Nickelodeon without even thinking. SpongeBob was always there, chirpy and loud, filling the silence while I ate cereal straight out of the box or ignored my homework. It's funny how those shows get burned into you. We didn't realize it back then, but they were shaping the way we saw the world. SpongeBob made you think life could be simple. Your friends would always be there. Your job could be fun. And no matter how many times you got knocked down, you'd pop back up with a goofy smile and a dumb laugh. I think that's why it stuck so deep. Years later, when the world got heavier, I found myself going back. YouTube compilations, reruns, bootleg DVDs off eBay. It didn't matter. I wanted that hit of comfort, that bubblegum-colored escape from bills and breakups and the grind of real life. And I wasn't alone. There were forums, whole communities built around it. People dissecting episodes like sacred texts, trading trivia, even whispering about the lost media surrounding Nickelodeon. That's where it started. At first, it was harmless. Rumors of pilots that never aired, shorts that got censored, scenes that were cut for being too weird or too dark. We passed screenshots around like trading cards, arguing over which ones were real. It was fun, like being part of a secret club. But every secret club has its darker corner. The deeper I dug, the more I found people hinting at things they weren't supposed to say out loud. Threads got locked, posts disappeared, and every once in a while, someone would drop a breadcrumb. Mentions of a SpongeBob episode Nickelodeon buried. One that was supposedly finished, but never aired. I laughed at first. Of course I did. Every show had problems like that. Simpsons had it. Rugrats had it. Even Sesame Street had its lost episodes. But there was something different here. We weren't just joking around. We were cautious. Not talking about it might get them in trouble. There were strangers there. Nobody knew. shut, like an old amusement park. Half the links didn't work anymore. Most of the regulars had moved on to Discord or Reddit. But there it was. A brand new thread. Curiosity 1. I clicked. Inside, the post was short. No introduction, no long story. Just a single paragraph. This isn't Squidward's suicide. It isn't any of the fakes you've seen floating around. This is the real thing. I don't recommend watching it. But if you're serious, message me. Don't share my username. Don't talk about this in the open. I read it over and over. My pulse was hammering, but I couldn't stop myself. My brain knew it was stupid, but the part of me that grew up glued to SpongeBob reruns felt like I just stumbled on buried treasure. So I messaged them. I didn't expect an answer. Half the time, people who posted things like that never responded. But this one did. Almost immediately. The username was something forgettable. Just a string of numbers with a single letter. I asked for proof. They sent a still image. SpongeBob standing in the Krusty Krab, except the colors were wrong. The walls behind him were sickly green. His eyes looked hollow. I wanted to dismiss it as Photoshop, but something about the frame didn't look edited. It had that cheap, early 2000s Nickelodeon quality, like the kind of VHS capture you'd see on old commercials. Too real to be fake. I asked them where they got it. They didn't answer that part. Instead, they said, "If you want it, I'll send a file. But once you watch it, you can't undo it. And you can't give it to anyone else. Not unless you want what happened to them to happen to you." Them. I stared at that word. Who was them? What had happened? I tried to push, but they shut me down. The next message was blunt final. Yes or no. Decide. Every rational thought screamed to close the tab. Shut my laptop. Forget I'd ever seen it. But my hands didn't listen. I typed one word back. Yes. They sent a download link. An unmarked file hosted on some anonymous storage site. No title, no description. Just a single file size that seemed too small to hold an entire episode. My finger hovered over the mouse. That's when another message appeared. Don't watch it alone. I don't know why, but that made my stomach twist more than anything else. Don't watch it alone. Like it wasn't just a warning, it was a rule. A rule I was already planning to break. Because the truth is, I didn't tell anyone. Not my friends, not the forum, not even the handful of other collectors I trusted. It felt like holding onto a cursed secret, and some dark, selfish part of me wanted it that way. That's the moment I stopped being a casual fan and became something else. An addict. A trespasser. I didn't know it yet, but I just signed my name on a contract I couldn't see. I downloaded the file, and the second the progress bar hit 100%, the room felt colder. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but you'll understand soon enough, because that's when I pressed play. When the file opened, I half expected nothing to happen. Maybe a black screen, maybe a virus, maybe a Rickroll. Anything but what I actually saw. The Nickelodeon splash screen flickered for a split second, but it looked wrong. The orange was too faded, almost the color of rust. The jingle was warped, dragging out like a dying cassette tape. It lasted longer than it should have, echoing into static before cutting away. Then came the title card, SpongeBob SquarePants, but the font wasn't quite right. The letters wobbled unnaturally, as if they'd been reanimated frame by frame. Behind the logo was no cheery ocean backdrop, just a flat, gray void that seemed to breathe, like clouds moving underwater. The episode title blinked on screen, but I couldn't read it. The letters scrambled and dissolved before my brain could register them. That alone set my teeth on edge. Still, I told myself it was a fan edit. Someone with too much time and too many editing programs. Nothing more. Then the episode began. It opened normally enough, SpongeBob waking up in his pineapple house. Except his alarm clock wasn't the usual boat horn sound. It was a low, distorted hum that made my stomach tighten. SpongeBob sat up in bed, his smile too wide, his movements just a little too stiff, like an animatronic instead of a cartoon. He didn't say anything. No, I'm ready. No giggles. He just stared at the camera for a beat too long before getting out of bed. I actually laughed nervously, telling myself, okay, creepy. Good joke. But the laughter didn't last. The next scene showed him walking down the road toward the Krusty Krab. The colors of Bikini Bottom were muted. drained of their usual candy brightness. The sky was dull gray. The houses looked warped, leaning at odd angles. In the distance, the waterline rippled in jerky, unnatural motions, like stop-motion claymation. SpongeBob passed Patrick's rock, but Patrick wasn't there. No background characters were. The whole place was empty. When he reached the Krusty Krab, the doors opened with a groan that sounded almost human. The inside was dim, shadows stretching unnaturally long across the floorboards. Squidward stood behind the register, but his head was lowered. His eyes weren't visible. SpongeBob shuffled behind the counter and began making a Krabby Patty. Slowly, too slowly. Every slice of lettuce, every squirt of ketchup was deliberate, like the animators were dragging it out on purpose. I thought maybe the file had corrupted, but then I noticed something else. There was no music, no bubble transitions, just silence. Thick, suffocating silence. I leaned closer to the screen, waiting for something to happen. That's when Squidward finally looked up. His eyes were bloodshot. No, worse than that. They weren't cartoon eyes anymore. They were real. Photorealistic, wet and red-rimmed, as though someone had stitched two human eyes into the animation. He didn't blink. He didn't speak. He just stared at SpongeBob, and for the first time, SpongeBob's smile faltered. I froze. My body told me to stop watching, but my hands wouldn't move. SpongeBob placed the patty on a bun, then turned toward the camera. His pupils shrank to pinpoints. The silence stretched. Then, faintly, I heard it. A laugh. Not SpongeBob's laugh. This one was faint, breathy, almost behind me instead of in the video. I whipped my head around, but my room was empty. When I looked back, the episode had jumped. Now SpongeBob was outside again, standing in front of his pineapple house. But the house looked rotted. The windows were cracked. The walls were covered in black mold. SpongeBob's body twitched like bad stop motion, his arms jerking at odd angles as he turned to face the door. He went inside. The living room was dark. Furniture overturned. Picture frames smashed. He stepped slowly across the wreckage, the sound design making every footstep echo like thunder. In the corner of the room, something moved. It was Gary, or something shaped like Gary. His eyes were hollow pits. His body was deflated, sagging like a punctured balloon. When he meowed, the sound was reversed audio, a screech that made me flinch. SpongeBob didn't react. He just kept walking, up the stairs, into his bedroom. The bed was gone. The walls were covered in what looked like smeared fingerprints. The camera panned slowly, uncomfortably, until it landed on a mirror. SpongeBob stared into it. And then, for just a split second, the reflection wasn't SpongeBob. It was me. I swear on everything I know, it was my face. Grainy, distorted, but undeniably me, staring back through the glass. I slammed the spacebar to pause, but the file didn't stop. The scene continued, SpongeBob tilting his head as the reflection lingered too long. My breath came shallow, my skin crawling. Then, without warning, the screen cut to black. I sat frozen, waiting. After a few seconds, I let out a shaky laugh. It's a fan edit. Just a really good fan edit. I convinced myself of that, even as I noticed my reflection in the dark monitor, pale, wide-eyed, eerily similar to what I'd just seen. I closed the file, deleted it, told myself that was the end of it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I hadn't just watched something. Something had watched me. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I shut my eyes, I saw SpongeBob's frozen smile, Squidward's wet, human eyes, and that reflection, the one that looked too much like me. I told myself it was stress, suggestion, maybe even some hidden frame that tricked my brain. But even then, a part of me knew better. The next morning, my laptop wouldn't boot. I pressed the power button, and instead of the startup sound, I got static, like the sound of an old detuned television. The screen flickered with gray snow before finally loading, sluggish, almost reluctant. When it did, the desktop wallpaper had changed. It was a still frame from the episode. SpongeBob standing in his rotted house, eyes hollow. I never set that image. I never saved it. But there it was. I deleted it immediately, changed the wallpaper back, ran a virus scan. Nothing. No infections. No hidden files. Just that picture, burned into my mind. That was the first glitch. Then came the laughter. It started faint, barely audible. Late at night, when the apartment was quiet, I'd hear SpongeBob's laugh echoing from somewhere in the distance. But it wasn't the laugh, the playful, nasal cackle from TV. This one was slower, stretched out, as if it had been recorded on tape and played back at half speed. Sometimes it came from the hallway, sometimes from behind my monitor. Once, I could swear it was coming from inside the walls. My friends noticed I was off. I'd zone out mid-conversation, staring at the corner of the room like I expected someone to be there. When I tried to tell them about the episode, they laughed it off. "Dude, you're just binging too many creepypastas," one said. Another told me to touch grass. So I shut up. But the episode wouldn't leave me alone. A week later, I woke up to find my TV turned on. I live alone, no roommates, no pets. The remote was still on my nightstand, but the screen was glowing faintly, static hissing. I grabbed the remote and tried to shut it off. Nothing. The power button on the TV itself didn't work either. The static only grew louder. And then, just for a second, the static broke. A frame flashed on screen. It was Squidward, his face filling the entire display. Eyes red, mouth stretched too wide. He didn't speak, but I swear his lips formed a single word: watch. Then the TV went dark. I stood there for a long time, heart pounding, remote still clutched in my hand. Every instinct told me to smash the thing, throw it out, leave the apartment and never come back. But I didn't, because I knew what it meant. The file wasn't gone. I had deleted it, sure, but it hadn't deleted me. After that, I started noticing other things. My reflection in mirrors lingered a second too long after I moved. My phone camera would glitch, showing a shadow in the background where there shouldn't be one. At work, I'd hear faint static bleeding from my earbuds, even when no audio was playing. The worst was the night I woke up to find my laptop open on the desk, screen glowing. I hadn't touched it. I hadn't even turned it on. And on the screen, the file, back in its folder, waiting. I didn't open it. Not that night. I couldn't bring myself to. But even without clicking, the title pulsed faintly in the dark, as if it were alive, as if it were daring me. That's when I remembered what the stranger had said before sending me the link. Don't watch it alone. I thought it was just a creepy flourish, a way to scare me. But what if it wasn't? What if it was a rule? I should have walked away. I should have smashed the laptop, cut the cord, burned it all. But I didn't, because by then, I wasn't afraid of what would happen if I watched again. I was afraid of what would happen if I didn't. I don't know why I opened the file again. Maybe it was obsession. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe it was the gnawing thought that the tape wasn't finished with me. And ignoring it was worse than giving in. Whatever the reason, one night I sat back down at my desk, the room lit only by the blue glow of the screen, and I pressed play. This time it was different. The Nickelodeon intro didn't appear at all. No jingle, no splash of orange. Instead, the file opened to static, pulsing like a heartbeat. Through the haze, I thought I could hear whispering. Words too faint to understand, like voices layered on top of each other. Some fast, some slow. Then the static cut, and there was SpongeBob. He wasn't waking up in his pineapple house this time. He was sitting on the floor of the Krusty Krab, alone, hunched over. The restaurant looked abandoned, tables overturned, windows boarded up from the inside. The colors were darker, grainier than before. SpongeBob lifted his head slowly. His eyes were wrong. Not cartoon eyes, not even the photorealistic ones I'd seen before. These were black pits, empty, swallowing all the light around them. And then, in a voice so faint I almost missed it, he whispered, "I see you." I froze. My headphones were on, but the voice hadn't come from them. It came from behind me. I ripped the headphones off, heart hammering, but the room was silent. When I looked back, SpongeBob was still on screen, staring directly at me. The scene dragged. Too long. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared, his mouth twitching at the corners like he was fighting the urge to smile. Then, with no transition, the camera cut to Squidward's house. It wasn't drawn anymore. It was real. Live-action footage of a stone tiki head in the middle of what looked like an empty studio. The lighting was dim, the camera slightly tilted. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the door creaked open. Squidward stepped out, but not as you know him. His body was animated, but his skin was pale, sagging. His eyes bulged too far from his head, glassy and bloodshot. He moved in jerks, like someone was dragging him forward with invisible strings. He turned toward the camera and began to scream. Not a cartoon scream, a real one. Human, raw, and desperate. It was so loud I tore my headphones off again, but the scream kept going, muffled now, echoing in my room as if it were vibrating through the walls. When the sound finally stopped, Squidward collapsed, and the screen cut to black. I sat there, trembling, about to shut the file. But then words appeared in white text, centered against the darkness. "You shouldn't be watching this." The letters pulsed, glitching in and out, before fading away. The episode resumed. This time it was Patrick. He lay face down on the sand, motionless. The camera zoomed slowly, painfully slowly, until his body filled the frame. His starfish limbs twitched, spasming like an insect pinned to the ground. When the camera reached his face, his mouth opened wide, wider than any cartoon should, tearing at the edges, until all I could see was blackness inside. Then faintly, I heard that same laugh again, the one from before. Slow, distorted, stretching into something monstrous. But it wasn't coming from my laptop. It was coming from the hallway outside my door. I bolted upright, slamming the laptop shut. The sound cut off instantly, plunging the room into silence. I sat there, gasping for breath, staring at the closed lid. Every rational bone in my body told me not to open it again. Leave it. Forget it. Throw the whole machine into the trash if I had to. But the silence didn't last. A soft knock came at the door. Just one. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Then another knock. Louder this time. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a lamp, and crept to the door, pressing my ear against it. Nothing. No sound. No movement. I yanked the door open. The hallway was empty. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for something to move, some shadow to flinch. But nothing did. Finally, I shut the door and locked it. When I turned back, the laptop was open again. I swear to you, I hadn't touched it, but the screen was glowing, the file running, as though it had never stopped. On screen, SpongeBob was back, but now he wasn't in Bikini Bottom. He was in a room that looked disturbingly like mine. Same walls, same desk, same crooked poster above the bed. He sat at a chair, facing a monitor, and on that monitor, grainy, distorted, was me. I stumbled back, tripping over the chair, my chest tightening with panic. The video me turned his head slowly, matching my movement in real time. Then the screen went black. I sat in the dark, the silence roaring in my ears, until white text flickered again. "Now you're part of it." And just like that, the file closed itself. I wanted to believe it was some elaborate ARG, a prank, anything but what it felt like. But the reflection, the hallway, the knocking, it wasn't just on the screen anymore. It was here, and it wasn't going away. After that second viewing, I couldn't pretend anymore. This wasn't just a corrupted file. It wasn't a fan-made hoax. It was something else, something that had its hooks in me, pulling tighter every day. I told myself I'd never open it again, but the truth is, the damage was already done. I started keeping notes, like some deranged detective piecing together a crime scene. I wrote down every glitch, every shadow, every sound I couldn't explain. At first, it felt like a way to stay sane, document it, rationalize it. But soon the notebook became less of a record and more of a diary, pages filled with paranoia. I wasn't alone either. The deeper I looked, the more I realized there were others. Hidden forums, buried threads, places you only found if you already knew what you were looking for. People who claimed they'd seen the episode, or something like it. Some of their stories mirrored mine exactly. Reflections that moved on their own. TVs that switched on in the dead of night. Laughter that seeped through walls. Others were worse. One user described finding a frame hidden in the static. An image of themselves lying in bed, taken from an angle they couldn't explain. Another claimed their kid disappeared after watching, leaving nothing but a laptop looping the same scene over and over. Most of those posts didn't last long. The threads got wiped, accounts deleted, whole forums vanishing without a trace. But I read enough before they disappeared to know I wasn't imagining this. There were others like me. Survivors. Or maybe victims. Some of them reached out directly. Messages that popped into my inbox from usernames I didn't recognize. You've seen it too, haven't you? It doesn't stop until it gets what it wants. I tried responding, tried asking what it wanted, but those accounts always went dark before I got an answer. That's when I started noticing the screenshots. They'd appear randomly in my folders, images I never saved, never downloaded. SpongeBob frozen mid-frame, staring directly at the camera. Squidward screaming, his face warped into static. Patrick, mouth stretched impossibly wide. Every time I deleted them, more appeared. One night, I found a screenshot that wasn't from the episode at all. It was of me, sitting at my desk, hunched over the laptop, the glow of the screen washing me pale. My blinds were shut, my door was locked, but the photo existed anyway. That was the night I stopped sleeping. Coffee, energy drinks, anything to stay awake. Because when I did close my eyes, the dreams came. Dreams of the ocean floor, endless and dark, with shadows darting just out of sight. Dreams of SpongeBob's laugh, echoing in places laughter didn't belong. Dreams where my own reflection peeled away from me, grinning as it stepped out of the mirror. I told myself I was documenting all this for a reason, that maybe if I gathered enough evidence, I could prove it was real, prove I wasn't insane. Maybe I could warn people. But the longer I spent chasing answers, the less I trusted my own mind. Once, during a late-night scroll through an archived forum, I found a post titled, "The Rules." It listed instructions for surviving after seeing the episode. Don't watch it alone. Don't watch it twice. Don't look at the reflection. Don't acknowledge the laughter. I'd already broken every single one. The post ended with a final line that chilled me more than anything else. Once it notices you, it never forgets. That's when I realized this wasn't about the tape anymore. It wasn't about SpongeBob or Nickelodeon or Lost Media. It was about attention. Once you gave it yours, it gave you its. And the more you watched, the more it watched back. I tried to warn a friend once. I sent them a screenshot, told them not to laugh, not to ignore me. They never responded. When I checked their profile the next day, it was gone, wiped clean, like they'd never existed. Maybe that was mercy, because me, I couldn't stop. Every night, I swore I wouldn't open the file, and every night, I found myself staring at it again, hand trembling, mouse hovering. The whispering always started first, crawling out of the static in my speakers. And then came the knock at the door. Always just one knock. Always when I was weakest. I didn't answer. Not yet. But I know it's only a matter of time. Because this isn't just a show anymore. It's a ritual. And I'm already part of it. I thought I had reached the end of it. That I'd cataloged every glitch, every dream, every shadow that stalked me. But I was wrong. Because one night, while digging through the depths of an old hard drive I barely remembered owning, I found something new. It wasn't labeled like the others. No strange file extensions, no corrupted names. Just a simple folder titled, Production. At first, I thought it was nothing. Maybe some leftovers from when I used to download animation assets in high school. But when I opened the folder, I froze. Inside were subfolders, each one labeled with familiar terms: storyboard, dialogue, rough cuts, final edits. And inside those folders were files, hundreds of them, frames from the episode, line readings from the voice actors, background art, except none of it matched. The voice clips weren't the cheerful tones of Tom Kenny or Roger Bumpass. They were distorted, trembling. One WAV file had SpongeBob's voice actor muttering, "Please, I don't want to do this anymore." Another clip was Squidward sobbing, not in character, but like a real man breaking down in the booth. The storyboard sketches were worse. They showed scenes that had never aired, never could have aired. SpongeBob pulling something wriggling and human-shaped out of his body. Patrick tearing his own face off to reveal another face beneath. And then there was the video. One single MP4, buried in the final edits folder. Its title, "Do Not Share." I should have stopped. Every instinct screamed not to click. But I did. The footage opened with a recording of a dark studio room. Not animation. Live action. The camera shook like someone was holding it by hand. You could see a man sitting in front of a microphone, head in his hands. His voice was muffled, exhausted. "This isn't a cartoon anymore," he whispered. "It wants more. It always wants more." He looked up, straight into the camera. His eyes were bloodshot, wild. "If you found this, it means you've already fed it. It means you've already let it in." Static tore across the screen. When the picture returned, the animation had started again. SpongeBob, Squidward, Patrick, all standing together. But this wasn't Bikini Bottom. The background was a featureless void, gray and endless. The character stood still, staring into the camera. For a full 30 seconds, nothing happened. Then SpongeBob blinked. He smiled, and in his voice, the voice we all grew up with, bright and cheery, but now stretched with something rotten, he said, "Are you watching?" The other characters joined in, their voices overlapping, echoing. "Are you watching? Are you watching? Are you watching?" Each repetition grew louder, harsher, until the sound became a roar of static and voices, a hurricane of noise clawing at my skull. I slammed the laptop shut, but the chant didn't stop. The words buzzed inside my head, vibrating my bones. "Are you watching?" I don't know how long I sat there, gripping my skull, whispering for it to stop. When I finally dared to open the laptop again, the video was gone. The entire folder was gone, but in its place was a text file. One line of text: "Now we know you are." After that, everything changed. The laughter, the static, the reflections, they weren't random anymore. They were deliberate, targeted, like the episode knew I'd crossed a threshold, like it had finally decided I belonged to it. When I walked down the street, TVs and shop windows flickered as I passed. At night, my phone lit up with notifications I hadn't triggered, calendar reminders, all with the same word, watch. I thought maybe I could outsmart it. Maybe I could isolate myself, cut off all screens, retreat into the analog world. But even that didn't work. The first night I killed the power, sitting alone in candlelight, I heard scratching at the window. Not claws, fingernails. I pulled back the curtain and froze. There, in the reflection of the glass, stood SpongeBob, not in his cartoon form, but in some grotesque, half-real state. His square body sagged with flesh. His grin stretched wider than his head should allow. His eyes, those black pinpricks, watched me as if I were the show now. I dropped the candle. By the time I scrambled to relight it, the reflection was gone. But the scratches remained. I don't think this episode was ever meant to be seen. Not by kids, not by anyone. It wasn't a broadcast. It was a vessel, a doorway. And every person who watches it doesn't just see it. They join it, feed it, become another echo in that endless void. That's the real horror. It isn't about Squidward's death, or lost animation cells, or deleted files. It's about something that hides in familiar shapes, waiting for you to let your guard down, waiting for you to hit play. I know what you're thinking, that I've lost it, that this is just another creepypasta, another story to click away from when it gets too heavy. But tell me this, if it was just a story, why did your screen flicker just now? Why do you feel like someone's standing behind you as you read this? Because once you know about the episode, you're already part of it. And it's only a matter of time before it asks you the same question it asked me. Are you watching? So that's it. That's the part one wasn't supposed to tell you. And I know what you're probably thinking right now. Why me? Why would I dump this into your lap when I could have just kept it buried? The truth is, it doesn't work like that. This episode, this thing, it doesn't let you carry it alone. It spreads. It wants to spread. Maybe that's why it ended up in my hands in the first place. Maybe that's why you're hearing it now. Because now you know. And whether you believe me or not, whether you laugh this off as just another internet ghost story, that's not going to change the fact that the episode has already brushed against you. That flicker you noticed on your screen earlier? That sudden tightness in your chest? The way you've been hyper-aware of the silence in your room as I've been telling you this? That wasn't me. That was it. I want you to do something for me. Humor me. After this ends, after you click away, I want you to sit in the dark for just 1 minute. No phone, no background noise, no distractions. Just you and the quiet. Listen, if you hear static, don't panic. If you hear laughter, don't look for the source. And if you hear a voice asking, "Are you watching?" don't answer, because the second you do, it knows you're paying attention. And that's all it needs. Maybe you'll be fine. Maybe you'll shut this down.